Newly disclosed emails that we've been reviewing have renewed fears over the safety of the 737 MAX. Joining us now on the phone is Ralph Nader, and it's good to have you. Mr. Nader, you've been fairly outspoken on this and on previous appearances on the show. I have a feeling that you would point to some of the latest anecdotal developments and say there was a reason for you to be expressing some of your very vociferous points earlier with us. I guess you're not looking at Boeing in a better light now than you were before.
Well, I think because of the internal emails that have now been belatedly released by top Boeing pilots, test pilots, saying that the simulator that tested that software, the so-called MCAS, that was put in the planes by Boeing to deal with the increased risk of stalling by the Boeing 737 MAX, that's creating a lot of trouble inside Boeing. It is sparking further the Justice Department criminal probe, and it's angered Congressman Peter DeFazio, who's the chair of the House Transportation Committee, and who will hear Dennis Muhlenberg, the defrocked chairman of the board, who is still CEO of Boeing, who will testify October 30th before that committee. So there are a lot of shoes yet to fall. The analysts should point to that. Congress has not been a factor up until now, but it will become a factor. Even the Senate committee under Senator Wicker is going to hear on October 29th Dennis Muhlenberg, the CEO of Boeing. And also the FAA is now on its heels, reeling backward because it didn't demand the production of documents sufficiently from Boeing, and it didn't act in time from Boeing. As a aerospace safety expert, Dr. Alan Deal, told me recently, the Boeing marketeers overruled the Boeing engineers. That's how he summarized it. And also the focus on full certification of the plane, demanded in a letter to the FAA by the Ethiopian airline crash families, because it is a new plane. That's going to be cranked in a new fashion, as well as the advice by Captain Sullenberger, who landed that plane safely in the Hudson River years ago, who demanded that there be simulator training. The focus has got to go back to the source of the problem, which is the engine overloads of an old fuselage in order to get more fuel efficiency to compete with the Airbus 320neo. Right. That is what shifted the center of gravity, pointed out in Captain Sullenberger's testimony before the DeFazio committee in June.
Let me ask you, though, in terms of steps forward for Boeing, it sounds to me that there's two issues for you. One is the accountability issue, and I'd love to understand what you think being accountable means at this point for Boeing, what would have to happen. And then separately, to the extent that you don't believe that this plane should be in the sky, is there any way that you could imagine that this plane could be put up back into service in its current construction?
Well, first of all, accountability means replacing Dennis Muhlenberg and the board of directors. They now are so dug in.
All of them.
They're dug in so much, Joe, that they now have a career conflict of interest with the well-being of Boeing in the future. And that often happens when the guys at the top can't say they were wrong, can't admit things, can't change things fundamentally. They are jeopardizing the future of the Boeing Corporation in terms of civilian aircraft production. That's why in Japan and elsewhere, the executives quit. They quit quickly. They resign. And that's why in our country, when corporations are mismanaged like that, they get a change of leadership. It's not happening at Boeing because the people at the top are all in the same pit together. They don't want to admit that they really, really performed in a very seriously adverse way to the safety of airline passengers.
Ralph, they actually did strip the chairman job away from Dennis Muhlenberg. It's now Dave Calhoun who's in that position, the former lead director.
That's right. That's the first crack. That's the first crack. And they have to realize that it's not good corporate governance for the CEO of a major corporation to also be chairman of the board. The board has to be more independent. But the board has not changed either. The board, either they didn't care to know over the last 2-3 years when all this trouble was being exposed with the MCAS and then the crashes, or they were told and are in complicity. Either way, I hope the congressional hearings will throw some more light on this.
No, the FAA, you didn't even touch on that, and that's we're finding out that there was a lot of, I mean, they work closely with Boeing, obviously, and that, you know, in the past seemed like something that you would want, but not if it becomes too incestuous, and some of the same engineers that design the plane are giving advice from the viewpoint of the FAA as well. So I'm sure you're not too pleased with that.
That's right. And the new head of the FAA, Stephen Dixon, he's been there about 2-3 months. I think he's going to have to get his own team. I think to have Mr. Elwell, the acting administrator, and Mr. Al-Bahrimi, the safety chief, there is baggage he does not want, it would seem to me. He will want his own team. So look forward to some personnel changes at the FAA. And it's about time that Congress funds the FAA. It's not entirely the FAA's fault, this cushy relationship. All that was pushed by Congress and the White House under both parties since 2005 to delegate more and more of the safety inspection to Boeing and away from the FAA. Instead of being a regulator, the FAA was a delegator, and under Al-Bahrimi, he was planning to go to the next step to be an abdicator. All that has to change, and it can only change if Congress empowers the FAA and provides it with enough budget to have enough technical staff and specialists to do the job for the American people and for global air safety.
All right. Ralph Nader, thank you. Consumer advocate Ralph Nader joining us on the phone. We'll be talking to you again, I'm sure. Thanks.